what happened in 1991 in Crown Heights in New York, where a Jewish man jumped a curb, ran a light, jumped a curb, killed a kid, 7-year-old kid. And then a Jewish guy from Australia, I think, uh, was overtaken by a mob a few days later or something and was killed. So anyway, Anna Devere Smith talked to all the people involved over a period of time. And then she reenacted and told the story based on all these characters. So it was mesmerizing, groundbreaking, still remains one of theater's most riveting moments. So last night, I went to the theater, Ife and I went to the theater, and we saw a young sister step into that role. And I have to be completely honest, I was not really in the mood for Fires in the Mirror because I'm a little bit race fatigued. Not race fatigued, like I don't ever want to talk about race and move forward with race. Nope, that's not it. It's just that I'm just feeling the weight of the moment that we're in. And I just felt like Fires and Mirror was gonna be one more thing that I was just gonna go home and just be like, that was not the case. That was not the case. Let me tell you something. That young sister took on those characters and it was stunning. Now tonight is opening night. I mean, yes, is it tonight? Thursday night is opening night. And I'm telling you, whoever's listening to me this morning, and if you are listening, go get you some damn tickets and go see this young sister do this piece. I'm gonna see if I can get her on. I'm gonna see if I can get her on. I don't know how I don't know how to make that happen. I'm on the board over there, and they, you would think that they would filter folks to my show all the time, but they don't do that. I don't know what that's about with them, but I'm a call somebody up and uh and uh and just try to see if I can get her on. So anyway, the play is written by Anna Devere Smith. It's directed by Nicole Brewer, and the young sister Clotilde Horn is the performer. And let me tell you something, she is breathtaking. She is breathtaking. And there was people at the rehearsal last night, at the technical rehearsal, that didn't even know anything about this play. They didn't know anything about it, hadn't heard anything about it. They didn't even bother to look it up. They just was up in the audience, which is fine. I like people who take those kind of risks too, because you never know what you'll get. So here's about the show. In 1991, in the Crown Heights section of Brooklyn, a Hasidic man's car jumped a curb, killing Gavin Cato, a 7-year-old black child. Later, in what appears to have been an act of retaliation on the part of a faction of the black community, Yanko Rosenbaum, a Hasidic rabbinical student, was stabbed and killed. The ensuing riots that racked Crown Heights' previous atmosphere, a tolerance for its divergent cultures, made national headlines and pointed to the growing friction in racial and cultural relations across America. Drawing verbatim from a series of over 50 interviews with Crown Heights residents, politicians, activists, religious leaders, gangs, street dwellers, victims, and perpetrators alike, Anna Devere Smith Fires in the Mirror is a theatrical event distilling the lives and voices of 26 of the incident's survivors into a visionary amalgam, the importance of which touches upon every American regardless of race, color, or beliefs. Presented in partnership with the Baltimore Center Stage. It was this young sister, Clotilde Horn, was a force of nature. She took on that performance, and if there were Tonys given out last night, she would have gotten it. She would have gotten it, and I'm glad I went. I'm so glad that I went. It was so riveting. Now I feel bad that I'm not even going to be there with the other people for opening night, but I'm kind of glad I'm not, because it felt very intimate and personal, and not to have a whole bunch of people around me while I could experience for myself was just what the doctor ordered. Just what the doctor ordered. So get your tickets. I'm going to see if I could call somebody over there and see if I could get around. It runs from Yes, and you know what, Ife, the director too. I would love to see if I could get them on. I'm gonna give them a call and talk to somebody over there. I mean, I'm on the board for God's sake. I should be able to call somebody. Like somebody should take my call, right? So it runs from January 19th to February 6th. That's a good amount of time. So you don't want to miss this. This is what theater is for. It is thought provoking, it's contemplative, and it will hopefully you will walk away with a sense of discerning about where we are in this country. This event happened in 1991. 1991. Here we are in 2022, and I dare say, and I will argue any point that we are not better off than we were. We are not. We are not. And so I was 10 years out of high school. I was 10 years out of high school in 1991. That's 31 years ago. Right? That was 31 years ago. I just celebrated 40 years being out of high school. And I was like 5 years out of college, 5 years graduated from college. So I was a grown up. I was in my grown up life, and I think at that time I was beginning to I just started with the inner city, I think, because I shortly after that went into New York to Essence and Terry Williams, and then back to New Haven. So that's what I think of what I think of as a 20-year span is really a 30+ year span. Oh Lord. So anyway, if you've not gotten tickets, get your tickets. You don't want to miss it. And in the lobby, they have a calming space where they have a photo of the young man that was killed and the Hasidic student that was killed. And they have both their pictures in that space so that you and then it's lit, and it has Hasidic sacred symbolisms and Christian symbolisms and candles, not real candles, people. So don't go over there and start getting all crazy. Battery operated candles. It's very beautiful. It's very calming. One person at a time. You can go sit and be contemplative. And I invite people to do that. I don't think people do that enough. I don't think people sit with themselves and just be with themselves enough without freaking out about, oh my God, I'm by myself. So there's a photo of the young 7-year-old Gavin Cato, and a photo of the Hasidic rabbinical student Yanko Rosenbaum. So I posted up on my Instagram and my Facebook, and for those who follow me, you can check it out. Quite zen and peaceful, and holy, very holy. It felt very holy standing in that space. But if you've not seen this, you really should go. And if you feel like I felt, I'm very race fatigued at the moment. And not because, as I said, not because I don't want to do the work or don't want to do the fighting or the marching or any of that. And really, I don't. But because it's been exhausting. And it's been exhausting dealing with white people. It's been exhausting dealing with Black people. It's been exhausting. So anyway, go and get you a piece of critical race theory in action, because that's really what it is, and I love it because you got a little bit of everything about that time frame. You got a little bit about the understanding in the beginning of rap music. You got a sense of understanding of gangs. You got a sense of understanding of how Crown Heights is only 10% Jewish and the rest is Black and Caribbean. And you would think the other way around. And I understand that because, when I was raising my kids in Beaver Hill, people had the belief that it was a Jewish neighborhood because they just assumed that there were more Jews in the neighborhood than anybody else. And the reality is that it was not true. that 66, a little more than 65% of that neighborhood is Black folks, Black people. And then there's another percentage of white people and then Jewish people. So, but people just make the assumption that it was a Jewish neighborhood. And I was always interested. I always found that fact interesting, how perception can become people's reality. You know what I mean? Like what a fool believes he sees. I borrow that from Kenny Loggins. Michael McDonald song. What a fool believes he sees. So same thing in Crown Heights. You know, you go to Crown Heights, you just assume it's a Jewish community. Nope. And so the pushback on the Black and Caribbean communities is as if somehow or other the Black and Caribbean people just arrived and that they don't have any right to be in those spaces. like occupation. I'm just saying. No hate, no shade. I'm just saying. Perception. Why can't we be friends? Why can't we be friends? Why can't we be friends? I don't know. But until we wrestle with this notion of this construct of race and race relations, until we wrestle with it for real, until we put everybody on the same playing field, I dare say that even if white folks get to colonize other planets, they're going to take their colonization mentality with them. We'll see this play out all over again. Anyway, that's my story. I'm sticking to it. So I'm dressed up for Leon Talley today. I'm dressed up for Leon Talley. And that's just the way it is. And I feel like we just lost so many people in such a short period of time, one after another. I dare say we need to go check on some of these other icons. Somebody go knock on Diana Ross's door and Halle Berry Fonte's door. I mean, go check these people so that we know that they are still with us. You know, I think there's one remaining temptation. You know what I mean? Like original Temptation. I saw Smokey on something the other day, so I know he's around and well. You know, hey Brianna. I just feel like, go and check these people. Because I don't think I could take much more of this. Jesus Christ. Too much. That's why I think, giving yourself permission to be contemplative and discerning is necessary. I know people want to, I know the buzzword right now, self-care. All right, but we need community care too. Like just check on your peoples in your communities. We have to do a little bit more of that. Yeah. I am happy to turn over the world affairs to young people. I think Black Lives Matter jumped on the scene and is pushing forward. I think they still have more work to do, and they know they have still more work to do. And I want to see them do it. You know what I mean? Because it is young people that are the revolutionaries. Dr. Martin Luther King was a young man in his 20s. He was a young man. Stokely Carmichael, or Kwame Ture, young people. El Haj Malik Shabazz, young people, young. They have the energy and the passion for the work. As I was saying to Ife last night, we were in the car. I said, God bless Al Sharpton and Reverend Jesse Jackson that still show up to injustices, still show up, because they are the ones, the leadership that can still get the media's attention to highlight an injustice. So when they show up to eulogize a fallen Black child at the hands of police or whomever, they can command the stage. And we need young people to step up and understand that they have to command the stage. And I think they're trying to do it. I think they're doing it with the tools of the day. And the tools of the day are social media platforms. Young people are commanding the stage with social media platforms. And I don't have I'm happy for that. I'm happy for them being able to gather support rather quickly over moments with a tweet or Instagram or Snapchat, that they can bring people together in mass quickly and at the same time all over the world. That is powerful. That is pretty powerful. You don't have to stand at a mimeograph machine and print out copies. Y'all remember that? And then post them up all over town, hoping that people will see it, you know. Or you don't have to wait to post stuff in the newspaper. And black papers in particular, you know. Yes, get the word out in black papers. Listen, black papers are still very necessary and viable and are still the lifeline of our communities. Still. You know, I'm on any given day. I always have to school people on the inner city news because you know, and because when I had a little white reporter here, the writer who I'm going on his podcast shortly, talk about, oh well, the inner city seems to be nothing but all but New Haven Independent. And I said, clearly you have not read the whole paper. You just read the first part of the paper. I said, because the paper is strategic. The first part of the paper is the New Haven Independent stuff, because the New Haven Independent has reporters that can do up to the minute reporting. And some of the stuff that they print, I pull because it can have a longer shelf life, and everybody in our community is not going on a New Haven Independent site. Believe it or not, they're not. Ask the people. Ask my residents in the Berger Apartments. Ask my residents in McConaughey Terrace. Ask my residents. You know, ask the folks. Ask the folks on Dixwell Avenue. Ask the folks in the barbershops and the laundromats who call and say, "We can get our delivery." See, this is the thing. When you look through a white gaze, all you see is whiteness, and so everything that you do is from a white perspective. You're not thinking about anybody else because that's not your experience. Whereas I'm concerned, as Black people, not only do we look through our gaze, we look through your gaze too, because we've been trained such. And so because we do that, we are able to sort of understand y'all where y'all don't understand us. So anyway, so I had to tell this cat, and I had to tell 3/5 this mess too, because he tried to blast me on the New Haven Independent site, talking about, well, when I pick up the inner city, it's just New Haven. I was like, sir, you just reading the first 2 pages. First 2 pages, yes, are the New Haven Independent and the Connecticut News Junkie, because that's up to the minute stuff, up to the minutes local, up to the minutes political, state stuff that's going on at the Capitol. Connecticut News Junkie does that better than any damn body. I couldn't hire anybody to do what they do. Couldn't. And even if I did hire somebody, I'm not going to make it blacker. It's not going to be blacker. You know what I'm saying? It's not going to be blacker. When Markeisha Ricks was at the New Haven Independent and Aaliyah Swaby and now Maya McFadden, I pulled this stuff first. Why? Because I have an understanding of where they're coming from. And I like the fact that they're Black over there at that New Haven Independent. But if I hired somebody Black, it's what they write is not going to be blacker than what Markeisha wrote or what Maya writes or what Aaliyah Swaby wrote. It's not going to be blacker. It's not. That's what you see. You have to go back and re-educate people all the time. So the first part of the paper is about up to the minute stuff that could take a longer shelf life, because we are a weekly publication. We ain't never been a daily. We never purported to be a daily. We never set out to be a daily. That was never our goal. We never was trying to compete with local newspapers. We wasn't competing with the Advocate. We wasn't competing with the New Haven Register. We wasn't competing with the Post. We wasn't competing with the Hartford Courant. We wasn't doing any of that. What we was trying to do was say, listen, Black folks, this is information that we can curate that we think is in your best interest to know something about. That's simple. So So the first front of the paper is about up to the minute stuff that could have a longer shelf life. The middle of the paper is a stuff we belong to Black news wires. Like we pay membership into the National Newspaper Association, which is a Black newspaper wire. It is a collection of about 150 newspapers, Black newspapers around this country. Now, I know a couple of years ago, there was this whole thing because Paul sent me this little piece like, oh, look, these little Black papers is getting together, 10 of them. Oh, they getting together. They're gonna do a collective. I was like, See, this is what I mean. White folks don't know nothing about Black people, nothing. So when I got that information, I was like, yeah, the NNPA has been around for over 100 years. We're already doing that, but we gonna applaud and uplift these young this set of 10 newspapers, Black newspapers that want to come and reinvent the wheel. We gonna support that. We gonna support it. Yes, do it. Meanwhile, while we paying our dues at the NNPA, the middle part of the paper is about the NNPA, and then it goes, and then that's very strategic how that is too, because it's the NNPA, it's the blacknews.com, it's blackdoctor.org, it's and a couple of other Black news wires that we belong to, so that I can pull information that you probably wouldn't get. I think Black people in this city want to know what's going on down south because they got peoples down south. Somebody stopped me the other day in Bloom talking about, I read a piece in this newspaper. She didn't know I was the editor of the newspaper. She's like, do you know about this inner city newspaper? I saw a piece on something in Texas that I know something about. I was so happy, my heart just swelled. And then Alicia said, that's Babz Rawls-Ivy. He runs that newspaper. She's like, do y'all always run stuff from Texas? I said, I try to run as much stuff from around the country as I can as it relates to whatever's going on in the country that I think people in Connecticut, Black folks, and anybody who will be interested in. She was she was like, it just gave me a piece of home. And this is why I do what I do. This is what I do. And this is why I have to come on and explain sometimes why Black press is necessary and how this newspaper is laid out so people don't get it twisted and think Paul Bass owns the inner city. He does not. It is owned by John P. Thomas, who is a Black man who you don't see because he's elusive. But you see my Black ass because I am the face of the paper in these streets. Happily to be it. So anyway, so that's the middle, and then I try to run some stuff from the continent. And by the continent, I mean from Africa. I try to pull pieces that are of interest from Africa, because guess what, people? We've got some African folks in our communities. We've got some Senegalese people, some Ghanaian people, and I try to run some Caribbean stuff. I try to pull some Caribbean stuff too. So the paper is strategic in how it's laid out. We're not just playing over here. We are very thoughtful about how we disseminate information into our community. And I know it's good because I get the teachers call me up and say, can we get a delivery of papers? Because I love teaching the babies how to hold a honest to God newspaper, and they can read, and then they can cut out stuff and weave. I can't tell you how many schools I've spoken over the years, Brendan Rogers and all these other schools and Troop and all these places. They've invited me, and these kids have made boards and have cut out stuff from inner city, has used the inner city for their Black history projects, have used the inner city for their women history, because when I do women's history in March, I'm all about Black women. Why can't I? And I don't have to say Black Women's History Month. I just say Women's History Month, and everybody in here is Black. That's how I do it. And every day is Black history. Every day is Black history. Every day. So yeah. So I just want people to be aware when they make these criticisms about the inner city and whatever. Oh, y'all still coming out once a week. We've always been out once a week, baby. When we started, we was out once a month. Do you remember we were a much bigger tabloid side? And this thing was like a Bible, right? You go pick it up, it'd be like 1,000 pages. And we had once a month. And I remember we went to twice a month, when we went to bi-weekly. And that was just like amazing. So we settled upon a weekly publication, because we believe that sometimes you need the long view. You need the long view. You need to sort of read something, sit with it, go back and read it again. Sit with it, read it again. We know we cannot compete with up to the minute news organizations. That was never our intention. We know that people will get their news from so many sources. So many sources. Listen, if you got a smartphone, baby, you don't even need to turn your TV on ever. You can just, I want news, blah, 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 blah. There you go. You got it. Got news. So that's the thing. So this is why I say this Black press is so needed. Needed. From the very first newspaper that was printed in the early 1800s by Black people, by freed Black people, because the newspapers of the day was not addressing what was happening to them as enslaved people. And in those days, when the first Black paper first came out, 99% of Africans in America weren't able to read, because it was illegal for Africans to be taught to read. But there was a handful, like Frederick Douglass, a couple of other people who was able to get an education, and by education meaning somebody taught them how to read. And then once the fire of reading caught on, they read everything. There was no book, no book off limits. They just filled their minds with everything. And so that translated into, we have to get our stories out there. And I spoke about this a few years ago. What they were talking about in those early papers was, should Black people stay in America, or should we find a way to get ourselves back to Africa? That was the conversation. Should we stay here where we were stolen to, and invest and put more of our blood, sweat, and tears into this country with the promise that somehow or other we can gain some freedom? And then there was another faction of folks who were like, we need to amass our money, get a ship, and take us all back to where we came from, so that we can reconnect with our peoples. That was a conversation. And I loved that. And here's the thing, 300 years later, 400 years later, we're still having that conversation. We are still having these conversations about, should we stay here and continue to invest in a country that never really wanted us? Or should we go back to a continent that doesn't know anything about us either, but we have a kinship and a bloodship connection? That is still the conversation. And there's those of us who longingly think about this, longingly, So anyway, I'm reading 400 Souls right now, and I want to have somebody come on and talk about this, because this is such a fascinating read to me. I'm enjoying it, and I've learned so much. Because when you think you know enough, and I went to a historically Black college, so I got more education than most around matters of African American history and history of the world. But I've learned some things that I did not know, that there were in the 1800s, there were more slaves and enslaved people in New York than there were in Tennessee. And the laws that came out of because these white folks in this country, colonists, found themselves with all these Africans because the slave trade was so populous, that they found themselves with so many Africans that they had to do something to contain them and to corral them, right? Because there was places where there were more Africans in a place than there were white folks. And yeah. But anyway, when I finish this book, I'm gonna have a larger conversation about this. I'm gonna try to finish this book before Black History Month is over. So I can go on to, because my next read is Octavia Butler.
NewHavenIndependent.org. Hi, this is Babz Rawls-Ivy from New Haven, Connecticut, and you're listening to WNHHLP 103.5 FM, streaming live at NewHavenIndependent.org.
Woo! All right, so I'm getting ready to have J.R. Logan and Jay Johnson from Make Haven on. If y'all have not gone over there, you really ought to. It's just such an interest. And I'm fascinated by it because I went to a Votech high school, so it's giving me my Votech memory, right, of making things, creating things, learning how to do things. So it's giving me that kind of vibe. And people are doing some cool stuff over there. And my good friend Lore, who I met through Mike Harris, who Mike Harris introduced me to Leor, who is the cutest thing. And if he's not single, I'm gonna see if I could connect him to some folks because he is cute. Anyway, but he's not gonna be on. But I've been threatening to have him on because I really like him, and I haven't had a chance to talk to him in a good while because pandemic. So we're gonna I think break. Harry's gonna play some music or whatever. We're gonna break for our usual. I'll be back at about 10 minutes after the hour and get set up for the Make Haven conversation. And then tomorrow, Dr. Churchwell is gonna be my guest, president of Yale Hospital. So he's coming on. He wrote a wonderful reflection for me for the Inner City News that I believe is going to run in this edition about MLK. And I can't wait to have a conversation with him tomorrow because even MLK talked about the disparity of health between Black America and white America. Dr. King even had time to talk about that. And that has moved and been a guiding force for Dr. Churchwell. And so I'm looking forward to having a bigger conversation with him. Plus, you know what? He's such a fashionable guy. So I better show up dressed up tomorrow, too. Ooh, my sartorial game is on lock, people. I'll be back.